work meeting.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Hillsborough Township Planning Board Business Meeting of January 22, 2015. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Wagner?
Here?
Mr. Julian?
Here.
Dr. Maruli?
Here.
Mr. Peason?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Burchett?
Here.
Chairman Dr. Sreesen?
Here. I would also mention that we believe we'll be expecting soon Committeeman Delcourt and Vice Chairman Cohen. But we're starting without them because tonight is a work meeting. This is a meeting in which we're going to discuss future business. At a work meeting, no action is taken other than we can take action on our own meeting schedule, of course. But other than that, we're not taking any action on the principal matter being discussed tonight. That matter is a review of a master plan amendment that was adopted in the spring of 2013, but for which zoning action was never taken. The idea would be to refamiliarize the board with this and ultimately to recommend to the Township Committee the zoning ordinances that would enact this master plan amendment. It was adopted in on March of 2013 as the Transit Ready Development District. I called it, I gave it a new name this week, the Eastern Amwell Gateway area. Why is that? The concept here, the core of the concept are Gateway A and Gateway C area establishment along Amwell Road, east of Town Center. Okay? The concept of the master plan amendment in 2005, which was a very major master plan amendment that we did, was to have a town center, then adjacent to the town center, areas called gateway areas of gradually decreasing intensity. So you get Gateway A, Gateway B, and in addition, along Route 206, to have other areas that were given a sort of awkward name, Highway Service Zone, which were sort of mixed-use areas. The idea being was to have a master plan that concentrated development of proper density, proper site design standards to affect a town center and a rational plan of development in the center decreasing toward the periphery. And of course, that was predicated on the bypass, which is since 2005, at least under construction at this point, though not completed. And with the bypass, turning the existing part of 206 through the middle of town into essentially a main street. So we're partway there. In the 2005 master plan, this section to the east of town center along Amwell Road had been largely dedicated to something called a transit-oriented village. Because in 2005, the concept was that the railroad there was going to be, which is a freight railroad, was going to be reactivated for passenger use as the West Trenton line that would eventually be using two new tunnels across the Hudson River that would go into Midtown New York. As we know, after 2005, sometime afterwards, that was canceled. And after that project was canceled, the township was left with a plan for a transit-oriented village that was a moot point. So what you do then when a piece of your master plan has become moot is you re-examine it and you change it and you alter it to what the new reality is. So the new reality was to extend the gateway concept east of town center, just like it's extended north and south of town center on Route 206. And that's what was proposed. Now, the current zoning of the area you can find on the current map. Unfortunately, it's too tiny to see from here, certainly. I have a copy of it here, and you can all have a look. In that area, the current zoning, and this was the zoning that was being looked at in 2005, to be replanned and reconceived, has a fair amount of it under something called HOO zone. Bruce, that's specifically homeowner occupation?
Occupied, yes.
And it's the kind of zone that's for a business when you run the business out of your house and people come and visit that business. So it's an old way of doing business, where, the doctor sets up his office in the front room of his house, or the guy who fixes your television has his workshop in his garage in his house, that sort of thing.
Or he straightens your teeth.
Right. Or that guy. Or the dentist who straightens your teeth. So that is a type of business that a few people still have, but is not as common as it once was. And it doesn't fit the usage of that area, or the sort of planning that we want to do in that area. It certainly doesn't fit the lots or anything else that goes on there right now. So the concept, again, in 2005 was a transit-oriented village that had a design and a density that would be suitable for the kind of residents and retail that'd be around a train station. But since that train station disappeared, and there would be no more than sort of a commuter bus area there now where people could park their car and get on the bus, the concept is to instead replace that with a Gateway A next to the town center zone, that would actually even connect with the Gateway A north of town center, as you can see. And the establishment of a Gateway C in part of the area, which would be a lower intensity version of the Gateway B, which you can also see on your map north of town center, and an extension of the TECD, the Transitional Economic Development Zone, which is what currently exists along Homestead Road, and would be extended from where it currently exists down here, kind of diagonally to the southern part of this area closer to town center. So here's what would be Gateway A, what would become Gateway A. This is already an R zone, and the part of the HOO zone that's here would simply be converted to more R, or residential, which is its current use. And that's what's adjacent to this neighborhood, CR, right here, this existing neighborhood. So between the existing neighborhood and the bypass would remain residential zoning. This right here, this line is the pathway of the bypass. And then this part down here would go from corporate development zone, a remnant of which is here, and then goes off, if you can imagine, off the map this way, kind of diagonally to the northeast, would become the Gateway C. And that's around where there would be, perhaps if there was a parking lot with buses, where commuters can park their cars and take buses, that would be sort of surrounding that area. And this property, which is right along the railroad here. That's the railroad right there. So what would have to happen is the current zoning would have to be, the HOO zone would have to be eliminated here. And the current zoning would be revised to establish areas of the transitional economic development, the Gateway A, and the Gateway C. And this R zone, residential zone, which is currently up here, would be extended down to Anwell Road to include some former HOO properties. In terms of this right here, which is in Gateway C, this is already developed. That's the Royce Brook Fitness Club, right? Right, Royce Brook Fitness Club is right there. It's already there, so Gateway C is appropriate zoning for it. And again, this is property on either side of the railroad. The other thing to note on this map is that everything in pink is already owned by the State Department of Transportation for the bypass project. So there's a large amount of land that's going to be zoned here that absolutely nothing will be done with because the state already owns it, and the state's mandate is to reforest it, actually. Which they're, if you noticed, in the part of bypass already built, they planted a lot of trees. So nothing will happen in this whole huge section. In fact, this section, is quite large. If you think about where Amwell Road is going by here and what you're seeing here, and I think this is where the road actually, the new road is curved to the south. So where Amwell Road was actually rebuilt to the south in a sweeping arc as it goes over the bypass, which isolated the old Amwell Road as it comes to the Royce Brook Fitness Club there. So this is already kind of developed by the state into the new Amwell Road segment, and again, nothing will happen there. In terms of what zoning is there now besides HOO, the only other thing that's there is some residential zoning. And of course, when you change that, you grandfather it. So anyone who has a house in a zone that would become, let's say, transitional economic, will get, you know, their usage gets grandfathered. They don't automatically become, you know, sort of an illegal home or anything like that. It doesn't work that way. And other zones that are being replaced, such as corporate development zone and HOO, where it's actually beneficial to replace those zones that are no longer relevant and not relevant for this area. As I said, this master plan amendment was already adopted under the name of Transit Ready Development District in 2013, and you have a copy of that in your packet. So the reason for having a work meeting is for us to refamiliarize ourselves with it, you know, ask any questions, talk about it, and also to recommend it ultimately, if we want to, as a future agenda item. Because for the last few years, the planning board has initiated zoning ordinances at a meeting, a regular business meeting, but not a work meeting, can't do it at a work meeting, has initiated zoning ordinances and sent them to the township committee for consideration and introduction. State law doesn't provide for that. State law only provides for the planning board to see and recommend a zoning ordinance in between township committee introduction and then the township committee public hearing upon which the ordinance would be voted upon. We add an extra step by having the planning board see it first, even before the township committee introduction, and recommend it to the township committee. We still do the part that we have to do under state law, which is to see it in between introduction and public hearing, but we do an additional part. So our other purpose tonight would be to establish that as an agenda item, if we wish, for an upcoming meeting of ours, presumably in March, when be time to get it ready. In a meeting where we're going to look at zoning ordinances and recommend them to the township committee, I think we would do notice for a meeting like that, so it's going to take some time to put that together. Okay? So we don't have to adopt a master plan amendment. It was adopted a little less than 2 years ago. But we just have to refamiliarize ourselves with it and determine that we want to recommend these zoning changes to the township committee at a future meeting and instruct our planner what meeting that might be, where this would be on the agenda, so that the planner can begin and our council can begin to make the arrangements for the proper notice to be given. Okay? Let me, if you want, have a look at the area in question, where this is. Sorry, Bob, you're on that end. Is mostly where you see this orange. That's the HOO zone. So it's this area right here, which is, and you'll see it by these orange lots. And that's what you can. You have it there. Okay. If you want to look at it in color, it's here. If not, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know you have those exhibits in front of you. Questions? about the general idea.
And just to add another piece to this, which you can take over, is that this was in process 3 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And with the passing of Mr. Ringelheim, it just got boxed, and we're just bringing it back out again to continue. the process.
Yes, sometimes when you consider a zoning change, one of the questions you get from people is, why are you doing this now? And the answer is we would have done it 2 years ago if our planner hadn't passed away as we were preparing to go ahead with this. So as a matter of fact, this has actually been sitting on the shelf for a while, and we're actually pulling it off the shelf. Why do you do it? Well, having adopted a master plan amendment, you're supposed to enact the zoning as best as you can. The master plan amendment provides, in a sense, legal protection to the township for its efforts to establish a plan and the zoning that enacts that plan against lawsuits. If your master plan and if the amendments to it as they occur, or become endorsed or cross-endorsed or represent good planning practices, that's protection from anyone who wants to sue for whatever selfish reason over any given piece of property that they would like to see a different use than is in your zoning or in your master plan. So the fact is, having established a plan that makes good sense under zoning principles and under development principles, we really should enact the zoning that's recommended in that plan, or at least in this portion of it, this amendment to it. The last time we had a major revision of the master plan was in 2005. Now, we've had some smaller scale revisions, including this one along the way, but we haven't had a major revision in 10 years. So one could say is, it should be of greater scope than this. And another thing is, why are you doing this? Well, actually, one could make the case that we should have a much bigger reexamination of everything at this point. But we've been reexamining it in pieces. So rather than having a monstrous undertaking, we've been doing it section by section. And this was a section that was getting addressed a couple of years ago because of the cancellation of the Trans-Hudson tunnels and just didn't get finished being addressed.
I remember working with Mr. Ringelheim back in the day on the Environmental Commission. Looked at this and we got some funding from ANJAC, and we put a lot of things that look familiar to me now, and I remember working on with him in terms of pedestrian bicycle paths and open park-like areas. So I see a lot of that verbiage that I remember working with him on. So I mean, it's good to see all that stuff in here. A lot of sustainable things.
And that was all by design, and of course, it's not by accident.
Right.
You worked on it, I worked with him on it. That's by design. Those are good planning principles.
Right.
And the idea was to incorporate all of that into this, and to accommodate the fact that at some point the bypass was going to be finished, and that is a major game changer as well. It's a major change of the environment here. That bypass has an exit on Amwell Road. That changes things. It doesn't just pass by it, actually. So you have to accommodate your master plan to major changes in your environment like that. And you have to accommodate to current thinking on sustainable principles for land use and for development. And so we purposely incorporated that stuff there. It just never went forward to the actual zoning ordinances. So the point here is to reintroduce it to everyone here, and then pick a date to restart the process with the recommendation of the actual ordinances.
So do you need a motion?
Well, not just yet, not just yet, because we're gonna, it's not so much, we'll do that, but the only thing we're gonna vote on is a meeting agenda.
Right.
We can't take any action other than adjust our own meeting agenda. And in fact, this is already, although I gave it a different name, this has already been adopted. So, but the name Transit Ready Development District kind of makes you think that we're still talking about a train station maybe or something like that, and that's not really what it is. What it really is the Eastern Gateway.
Good idea.
So I just gave it a different name, but really, the actual concept is already here, 2 years, been sitting here waiting to be applied. Bruce, if you could give us just a capsule summary of what each of those zones, the Gateway A, the Gateway C, and the Transitional Economic Development Zone entail in terms of their uses, so that the members can get a sense of what it would be that we would be recommending in an ordinance.
The TECD zone district, the Transitional Economic Development District, envisions that the purpose would be to provide transitional employment generating development between high-intensity light industrial and corporate development districts and the existing nearby residential development. So all that has been incorporated in that particular zone district. The CDZ, which is nearby, is a corporate development zone district intended to promote the suitability of corporate development opportunities, improved land uses compatible with residential areas and existing and proposed transportation facilities. The gateway areas, we already have a Gateway A and a Gateway B district and zone district. The purpose of Gateway A is to promote land uses along 206, New Amwell Road, and Amwell Road, next to the town center development area, compatible and designed to provide a transition between highway and the merging town center development. And the Gateway B, already in existence, is to establish a transition zone between the Gateway A and adjacent areas along major roadways. And the essence of that district is to save existing residential structures and allow new structures to have residential look that are compatible. The Gateway C district, not yet created within the town's ordinance, would be a zone district yet to be created. And as Dr. Cerisi has already indicated, the purpose of which would be similar to Gateways A and B, but it would be essentially non-retail in scope. And that is something that would have to be created. The planning board would have a role in that, and it would be the governing body who would adopt it.
What would be then, so the permitted uses in C again, just to,
That has yet to be created.
but it would be like B,
That
so
it-
maybe, yeah.
Very similar, yes, in terms of office and activities like that, but not so much retail. At least that was from the information that I read
Yeah.
on the draft of the Gateway C that was created by the committee I believe you chaired
Yes.
with Bob Ringelheim.
That's right, and that
C-
was the idea,
C
indeed.
is actually in here, permitted could be mixed-use development with reasonable walking distance from the transit facility, so that's the old. But the proposed uses were offices, child daycare, adult daycare, fiduciary institutions, medical centers, restaurants, commercial institutional facilities, and corporate conference facilities and hotels and motels.
Wasn't the, across from Kmart, isn't that a gateway also? Wasn't that a Green Village? Wasn't that a gateway center?
Well, you can
That was
actually
Green Village.
see, well, Green Village is specific for the
Right.
affordable housing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was specifically created to be part of our affordable housing plan.
I remember-
That's another question we get a lot. What is going on across from
Right.
United Rental and all that? That's part of our affordable housing program that's going on.
I thought I remembered a
court
gateway
mandated,
designation or
yeah.
something.
That was a court thing.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. We're a court town, we're under Superior Court jurisdiction. We have to have a plan that's approved by the court, and that's part of the court-approved plan.
Right.
But that's, this is, and, you know, and that has to be incorporated into your master plan, your zoning, so you have to do that. But that's a given in the state of New Jersey. You
Right.
have to do that. There are standards for where you should put affordable housing, and they have like zones, they call them, what is it, zones?
Inclusionary zones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, inclusionary zones. So you're supposed to build when you do have inclusionary development or affordable housing, it's supposed to be in the more highly developed areas with the largest transportation possibilities to it. It's not supposed to be in a remote area, sort of like put in a gulag somewhere. It's supposed to be central. So, an inclusionary development or affordable housing could be in any of these areas that are close to the center, because these are in those sort of inclusionary zones as defined by the state. And and that's what's, yes, Bob summarized it here. The, were you reading from this section, Greg?
Yes.
Right here?
Yeah, it's
From that section, yes.
it's not
exactly.
identified. But, yeah.
So it's summarized in your packet, what the zones are. The packet doesn't have page numbers. It's a little bit, it's beyond the center part, it's towards the back half of the packet.
Steve,
Bob,
that's the original thing
Yeah.
from the master.
well, no, this is the proposed future zoning that's part of this. R1 residential, Gateway A, TECD, and Gateway C.
Right. This is the 2005 master plan. The master plan amendment phase 2, yes.
That's the reason it still says it has the word transit village in it.
Right.
I'm reading from the new part. I'm not reading from that. I'm not reading from the old part. You're right, it's a little bit, in the thing that Bob prepared then, Ringelheim, there is a part in here, in the packet, where he goes over what it was in 2005.
Right.
And he talks about the transit-oriented village, the thing that was going to be the design for where the train station was. And then the explanation then goes forward to say, okay, yes, and you have it right there, Greg.
Right.
It says,
You have it too.
I know, it's in all our packets. And it's earlier on in the packet than where I'm looking. And he basically, it's here, it's from
October 27, 2005.
2005. And you have Wells Appel and Lenaz Mueller, who were our consultants at the time for that major master plan amendment in 2005, and this was a component of it, okay? This was a component of that major master plan amendment in 2005. And in there, you'll see a description. So Bob says, here's the concept, and he goes through the transit-oriented village. Then, after that's done, he goes into, okay, well, what are we proposing now instead? And again, he calls it a transit-ready development district because he's thinking of the bus station. But it's just a bus station for commuter, bus ride. And he goes through the goals and objectives, land use management, community design, housing, where appropriate, promote and support the development of affordable housing. Why? Because this is in what's called an inclusionary area for the state. It has to be carefully phased. That economic development, community facilities. So he's got the purposes in there. Then county and state plan considerations, looking at the state and county strategic plans and how this would fit. Then he talks about the different land uses that would be involved in this: residential, gateway retail, gateway mixed use, which is gateway C. Mm-hmm. So gateway retail is gateway A, gateway mixed use is gateway C. And then he describes what the zones would be. So the residential zone is already there, so that's nothing new. It would just be extended to some of the properties that are in HOO. Gateway A provides a transition into town center from the east. Retail sales, personal services, offices, medical centers, extended care facilities, veterinary hospitals, indoor and outdoor recreation, health club fitness, banks, business services, restaurants, art studios, commercial instructional activities, just the same sort of stuff that's along 206 in those gateway areas. And then the gateway C, which you see is towards the railroad track, that's the transition to the corporate district beyond it. And that's mixed-use development, which means it can have a mix of permitted uses, such as offices, residential, fiduciary institutions, medical, instructional facilities, etc., and even hotels, motels. and in that area, but not retail, right? Not retail. So that's meant to be something you'd have, by the railroad, basically. It's the stuff that you might have by the railroad, and near I guess a bus station. It says any housing permitted in the GC district is recommended to be timed in conjunction with the construction of a transit facility. So you wouldn't be building housing in that district until they were building, but the state was putting the bus station in for people to take the bus who lived in that housing. That's how that's good planning practice. And then the Transitional Economic Development District, which is the district we just approved that small pharmaceutical plant for, which is along Homestead. There's going to be a section of it here. Is a transition to the light industrial directly to the south of it. And that's our research and development, as you know, warehousing, computer centers, inside manufacturing, which is what the little pharmaceutical plant was, and could also have daycare, farm markets, office parks, commercial instructional activities, indoor recreation, health clubs. And that sort of thing is the kind of thing that's along Stryker Lane, and that far end of Raider Boulevard past the movie theater. So it's meant to be similar to what's there. So that's the idea. They're transitional to the things around them. They're similar to other things in the township, and Gateway C is even a step down from the Gateway B, which is present along 206. Okay? And that's all here.
Is there an update in terms of the bypass? Any?
Well, as we know, I mean, and I don't think it's a secret to anybody in New Jersey, with the transportation fund being broke and not having a ready means of refreshment, it's not clear exactly how and when the state's going to finish the part of the bypass between Amwell Road and Old Somerville Road, that northern part of the bypass.
Okay.
The southern part is already funded and under construction, and it will be finished. As you can see, it's a rather big project there. As you can see how much clearance was done between Mountain View and Route 206 at that intersection. So they still got to finish that. And then the question will be, how will the transportation fund or other projects besides this one get funded?
Right.
Driving up 206 today, I saw gasoline at $1.95 a gallon. So if they're going to raise the gas tax, now might be the time.
Yeah.
But the fact is they're going to have to fund the transportation fund to finish it. What we had been told is it would be, within the next couple of years, but, that's assuming the transportation fund is funded. It's on the list, but it's got to have money.
Okay.
So the state has to find the money for it. So it'll be done, but it's got to be paid for.
And the potential of that bus line going in is still.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a private company, with buses there. It doesn't have to be New Jersey Transit.
Right.
You can have a private carrier that would have interest in bus lines go in there. Again, they probably, they might be thinking about the bypass as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, but they could go in there whenever. And then they would have access through, up to Amwell Road to where the buses are going to go.
Right.
That would be the idea. I mean, there are very similar things for commuters
Yeah.
all over the place. So, that's the idea.
That's what it
Any other?
No, I thought it was like a good idea though to have that transit station there in terms of commuters and, so I mean, I know the train project funding, that project went away, but I thought the bus project was a good project and transition into, like I said, some of these nicer sustainable projects that are, part of this, so it's a good plan.
No, I mean, if you have, it is. I mean, if you have that bypass and you have that major intersection between the bypass and Amwell Road, and Amwell Road itself is a fairly major connector road, and you got a lot of people in Hillsborough got to work in the city or wherever.
Yep.
And it just seems to make sense, because we don't have a train station. Although, granted, people can go to the train station, to the Raritan Valley line up there in Raritan, Somerville, and
Right.
Bridgewater, but it certainly makes sense, given the number of people we have here, and then, you know, how many people have to commute to work. And it's a sensible area to put it. Again, it's not something you're gonna put up in a wilderness. It's the right place to put it, next to a railroad line and next to a major road intersection. Makes sense.
Mhm.
So the idea being that that's not a terribly intense thing, and none of this development is terribly intense or outrageous, because it's pretty much the same as what we got north and south of town center along 206.
Yeah.
It's not any different, really, and the TECD is what we got along Homestead Road, so it's nothing crazy, you know, and, you know, with the affordable housing stuff, well, that comes what may. That's the state we live in, which is a pun. You don't get it. It's the state we live in, capital S and small s. So, you know, this is in an inclusionary area, so that could happen anytime anyway, you know, if that's what is called for. So, in any case, even without that, it provides for sensible planning for this area. And again, people should realize, look at how much is in pink on that map. So much of it's owned by the state anyway, that there's a lot of it that won't get no developed no matter what.
Yeah.
Any questions?
What's
Bob?
currently in the TECD zone? It looks like, is that housing or, and then is that going to be provided that the road from Amwell gets connected to Raider, as it said in the notes?
Well,
The
that
only
would,
way to get there is right along the frontage of Steinmetz Road, it looks like.
yes, that's right, and there is access to Steinmetz now.
Right.
And that would remain that way. Now, what is that zoned right now? Right now, that's zoned residential, R zone, okay? Between Steinmetz and
I
the
believe
southern
all-
boundary of this area is zoned residential.
I believe all that is residential at the moment.
Yeah. Now, there's relatively large lots. That's not dense residential
Right,
there.
right. It's,
That's quite large lots, and, you know, if people there, if it's worth their while to, you know, if a business comes in and makes a proposition to people, then it's worth their while to sell, they will. But this is an area that's close to town center, that's close to light industrial, and it's not an inappropriate planning thing I mean, TECD is sort of a variation on the light industrial theme. So, it's entirely appropriate between the town center and the light industrial zone to have something like this as a transition. So, but if people want to stay in their homes, they do, and, you know, and their use can be grandfathered, you know, you don't kind of say, you know, if you want to put an addition on your house, it's illegal or something like that. You're still, you have a home, it remains legal. It's just that, you know, something to be knocked down and redeveloped would then go into the new zoning. You know, Gateway A involves, you know, the possibility in Gateway C of residential as well. So people who live there already, it's not like they're made illegal or thrown out or anything nothing like that happens. But this is not a typical residential neighborhood, as anybody driving through there would see. There's these bowling alley lots, long, thin lots, a lot of open space. It's kind of a strange way to divide up the land. And it's entirely possible that it'll come into different uses, particularly once the bypass is truly opened and you have a real interchange there at the bypass and Amwell Road. It would make sense for that, an interchange like that, to stimulate some business development.
Steve, where could the bus station go in the GC that's not red?
Oh, see, there's a blue area, a light blue area there, in between. You know, you see where the pink area has GC written on it in black?
Right,
Go due south.
right.
staying west of the
Mhm.
railroad.
Okay, yeah, that section, all right.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's where a private concern, and it's right next to, there's a large lot there that's right next to the railroad. That's where the train station would have been.
Right, okay, yeah.
If that had become a commuter line, that's exactly where the train station would have gone. And that's just south of where Amwell Road now has its new portion that curves to the south before going over the railroad track, as it goes over the bypass and before going to railroad track. So that's easily accessible to Amwell Road and to that interchange. So yeah, that would have been the train station, so.
Mr. Chairman, to give credit where it's due, freeholder Peter Palmer has been very active, continues to be very active promoting the West Trenton line, and also the bus situation that might be created there. So although it's not dead, he is actively participating in as many forums as possible with our legislators and with Trenton and a nation's capital in order to get that moving forward.
Well, the idea, as I understand it, was that the problem with the tunnels across the Hudson were, well, A, they're massive expense.
Yes.
B, the fact that the federal government was going to leave most of the expense, the vast majority of the expense, to the state of New Jersey, which didn't have the money. C, that the tunnels were going to be blasted into, what did they say, Macy's basement? Basically was where the terminus was going to be. So if you wanted to go to Macy's, it was great.
Convenient.
But it didn't really connect with anything else. Transit-wise, it didn't connect with Penn Station specifically. It didn't connect with Grand Central. It didn't solve certain issues. So the point was, why are we sinking, I don't know how many billions of dollars into a line that goes to Macy's basement, was the idea. What they really could use is an expansion of the main line, the Northeast Corridor, that other trains could use besides, Amtrak, that New Jersey Transit could use too, and that could be a real rail link, and then other things can connect into. And if the federal government really wanted to fund something, worth billions of dollars, it would be that. And expand something that you could connect Penn Station and Grand Central truly, besides that shuttle, they have to walk, get on the shuttle and then walk again. And to have a true connectivity with the rail service rather than some kind of standalone station underneath Macy's. But they have to, if you're going to advocate for something, that's what you're going to advocate for, an expansion of true connectivity. And then you could talk about that again. And if that happens, then the bus station, I guess, could convert to a train station, I suppose. But right now, that's still pie in the sky. And it's good that people are keeping the discussion going. And Peter understands, which is why he's also saying, hey, bus transportation too,
Absolutely.
which is much easier to do and can be done right now without, expending billions of dollars that nobody appears to have at the moment, so. Any other questions, comments? So, Bruce, when would we look to have a planning board meeting where we could put this on the agenda? Would it be March 12th?
Yes, it would,
Okay,
because we already have a full schedule for the 5th.
okay. So, coming up is the following. February 12th is too soon to have this all ready. There's no other, nothing else right now. We could cancel that meeting right now. February 26th is that business meeting in February is always every year for the capital budget presentation, so that agenda is set. March 5th is filled with the development applications, but March 12th is empty. So we don't have to wait till March 26th for that business meeting. We could do this on March 12th. So on March 12th, we would once again resolve to make the township committee, to recommend this master plan amendment again to the township committee of 2015, as it was recommended in 2013. And we should also have ready at that time the zoning ordinance or ordinances that would put the zoning into effect that would, in a sense, enact the plan in this master plan amendment,
Very fine. Including Gateway C,
including Gateway C,
which does.
which is going to be mainly Gateway B with a tweak,
Hmm.
with the tweak about the retail. So it's not recreating the wheel or creating anything from scratch. It's taking Gateway B, which already exists, and pulling out the retail more or less, and that's Gateway C.
Very good.
And having in, as Neil said, all those proper modern design standards and sustainable practices and everything else that had already been designed in. And on March 12th, we can then have a hearing, see what the public has to say, and if we so choose, recommend the ordinances to the Township Committee for introduction,
Very good.
which they can introduce then. Then they would have their schedule, because they have to notice for their public hearing ultimately, maybe in April, whenever that would be, and to do that.
Very good.
Okay? So, I don't know, I don't think we need a motion to tell you that, really. I mean, it's just sort of a consensus thing. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Or you tell me.
Consensus.
It's consensus, so is everybody okay with that being on our agenda? Okay. I guess we do need a motion if we're going to cancel the February 12th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, February 12th is canceled. So our next meeting will be February 26th for the capital budget presentation, followed by March 5th for some development applications, followed by March 12th for this matter,
Very good.
for a public hearing for this matter. Okay? There is no floor to ask if there's any public business from the floor. Well, no, he's not, that's his government official.
Still a member of the public.
No, it's okay. I mean, Gene, if you want to say anything, you can. That's Gene Strabinsky, our business advocate back there, but he's, not generally speaking, he doesn't speak at these, so. There being no further business, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.